everyone? Hope y'all are doing marvelous as always. Just a little, if you follow my Instagram, then you probably, caught some of my stories over the past couple weeks. I guess this flu season is, it's pretty bad. It's been, I guess it's one of the worst ones that we've had in years. I normally get my vaccine every year, and this season was no different, yet it still got me. It took me out for quite a minute. So that's the reason why I haven't uploaded, in a couple weeks, at least whiteboard sessions, but I'm feeling much better now, you figure I'd get back to it with the one that I promised y'all the last time, which was going to be protein for muscle building and maintenance. How much? So I want to first start off with some reminders. Now, from my session 101C video, which was about proteins, I'll leave a link to that, but if you didn't catch that, definitely go back and catch it, because it's going to, help bring you up to speed with this reminder here that I'm going to get into first, which is the essential amino acids as well as the non-essential. So if you remember from my video, or if you haven't seen it yet, proteins are made up of amino acids, building, maintaining, repairing, right, our muscle tissues and things like that. So there are 9 essential amino acids as well as 11 non-essential. Now, you need all 20 in order for your body to properly and adequately build and maintain muscle. Okay, something to keep in mind, you need all 20. And as a reminder, the non-essential amino acids, those are the ones that your body can synthesize on their own. You don't need any help from outside sources like food or even supplements, right? The essential ones are the ones that your body cannot produce on its own. That's why they're called essential. They're necessary and required. But since your body can't synthesize it on its own, you need to get it from food, okay? You got to get it from food, or like if you're in the sports realm, you most likely, maybe there's a powder or something like that, or some sort of muscle milk that you may drink or that you swear by, that provides you the like the BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, which are made up of 3 of the 9 essential amino acids, which would be leucine, isoleucine, and valine. In getting all 20, it's important to know what types of foods you should eat in order to get all 20. So I'll only touch on this briefly because I'm planning a future video where I'm going to talk about all the dieting types. But some of these foods here, I have, they're more vegan, vegetarian options. And obviously some of them are, for those of you that maybe don't follow that specific type of diet, you pretty much will eat whatever, or maybe you eat more, carnivore type, carnivore style diet. But we have plant-based versus animal-based proteins, right? So that typically is where you're going to get majority of your proteins, if not all, for you to maintain muscle as well as build. So animal-based proteins are so far some of the best sources that you can get proteins from, right? Most animal-based sources, pretty much all of them, that ranges from meats to beef to lamb, pork, veal, seafood even, okay? You usually won't lack anything there. Your plant-based sources, though, they're a little different, okay? Now, this isn't to say that plant-based sources aren't good sources of protein, but there are some plant-based sources, though, they have what's called incomplete proteins, right? But in order for you to get the essential amino acids you need, you have to eat complete protein sources. So if you eat incomplete proteins, then what can happen is that amino acid profile that we're all supposed to have based on our genetics, our DNA and whatnot, our coding, can end up missing, right? Certain amino acids that are, essential for certain, activities or functions, I should say, bodily functions, like, carrying oxygen from, your lungs to your tissues, and as well as like, of course, building muscle, maintaining muscle, repairing our tissues, right? The protein collagen, which is known to sort of connect, that's for connective tissue. So when you cut yourself, you get a scar, what have you, close up that open wound, right? But if you don't get complete proteins, you can end up lacking that essential amino acid that your body needs to do those things. So with that, we have incomplete versus complete proteins. I've written down some examples of different types of incomplete as well as complete. Starting with the incomplete side, right? You have beans. So majority of people love eating black beans, pinto beans, maybe you even like lentils, kidney beans, or chickpeas, right? Those are all, while they're good, they unfortunately are incomplete proteins. As well as nuts and seeds, right? So almonds, your peanuts, your sunflower seeds, those are all incomplete proteins, and so are certain grains, right? So that being wheat, rice, oats, and then you, last but not least, have certain veggies, broccoli, asparagus, and spinach, just to name a few. Okay, those are all what's called incomplete proteins. Now on the other side, you have complete proteins, so all animal-based sources. Now we have tofu and tempeh. Now those are vegan type sources, but they happen to serve as complete proteins because they derive essentially from soy, and soy products tend to be complete proteins. So tofu and tempeh, as well as edamame. Edamame, those are like the little soybeans. Oftentimes they're, put inside pods, right? So edamame is also a complete protein source because it is also a soybeans, right, is what you're essentially eating. That's the digestible part of the edamame. And I wrote down another example. It's one of my favorites to eat. The Morningstar veggie burgers, the Gardein veggie burgers, or the Morningstar veggie crumbles. I usually eat the Morningstar veggie crumbles for breakfast with my egg whites, okay? And I forgot to, of course, say eggs, but that's an animal-based source too. So, eggs is a complete protein source. But I normally eat the veggie Gardein burgers, maybe once or twice throughout the week. They're pretty good. They're made up of a bunch of different veggies, into a patty, but they also have soy in them, and that's what makes them a complete protein source. Before I move on to how much, okay, there is something that you should know about incomplete proteins. Just because they're incomplete doesn't mean that you should not eat them or that you should avoid them for complete proteins entirely. Oftentimes, incomplete proteins, for a lot of you that don't know this, they can be made complete. Now, the way you do that is by simply combining foods. So you take incomplete proteins, right? You could take two incompletes and make them complete. So one of the best examples that I can give you is beans and rice. So beans and rice by themselves are incomplete proteins, but when you combine them together, they become complete. So beans and rice, rice and veggies, black beans and veggies. I believe there was one meal prep session where I did, lentils and then rice and whatever veggie was of my choice, be it broccoli, be it, mixed bell peppers and onions. By themselves, incomplete proteins, they have a decent amount of protein in them, but again, not enough to complete your acid profile, your amino acid profile. They don't have enough to, give you the essential amino acids that your body requires. You can take a complete protein and combine it with an incomplete. You're most likely not overdoing anything if you go that route. But you can combine a complete with an incomplete. So like say tofu or tempeh with rice, chicken and rice, beef and rice. Like, so if you eat steak with rice or what have you as a side, and then whatever vegetable you choose, that's your method of getting complete proteins for your body to be able to build and maintain muscle, as well as do other, internal cellular and bodily functions. Sometimes what I'll do, like with the Morningstar veggie crumbles, if I don't eat it for breakfast and mix it with eggs, I do that with rice, which by itself is incomplete. So rice and veggie crumbles, or rice and the Gardein burgers, right? The one thing about vegans though, I'm not saying all of them are like this, but one common issue with veganism is lack of nutrients. Sometimes vegans have to, just as a preview, because like I said, I'm gonna go in depth about this later, in a future video, but some vegans have to, sort of supplement, maybe take, vitamins to get the nutrients that they miss out on, right? Or, they have to, of course, they're the ones more likely to have to combine sources of protein. Okay, as a matter of fact, my mother, as an example, she has a friend who, he doesn't eat any kind of animal-based sources. Pretty sure he's completely vegan. At least with vegetarians, they can still eat, if I'm not mistaken, fish. They can still eat eggs, right? That's not really prohibited by the dieting standard. But vegans, they don't eat anything animal-based. So my mother's friend, right? He'll eat a lot of beans and stuff like that. He'll of course eat rice, but he doesn't eat anything animal based. And as a result, I remember my mother telling me that his doctor had recommended that he eats more protein, like he needs to eat more protein. And the reason for that, of course, is because he's eating a lot of incomplete proteins and he's not able to complete it in a way that's sufficient for his body to complete his amino acid profile. He can stand to eat, if not animal-based sources, here's some other ones. That's why I made sure to write these, for anyone who's also interested in trying to eat something other than just meat all the time as well. Here's some other things that you maybe can try out. I know a lot of people don't really like tofu, but tofu can be good depending on how you cook it. I got meal prep, sessions about tofu. So, and even for me, tofu, cooking it wasn't like, the first time I made it, I had to throw it out. Like I don't know, it was my first time making it, so I didn't really know what I was doing. Didn't really do enough research or anything like that. So I had to throw it out. I ended up making something else. I think I might have had chicken as a result. So, but tofu, once you understand how to make it, once you get hip to the different methods of cooking it, whether you're sauteing or even air frying, oven baking it, knowing what seasonings to use, because you can season tofu just like you would chicken or any other type of food. My favorite is to do teriyaki tofu. I love teriyaki pretty much anything. Teriyaki chicken is one of my favorite meals to eat. So teriyaki sauce was kind of right up my alley when I tried the second time, learning how to cook tofu and then eventually tempeh. I know a lot of people don't like it, but definitely give it a shot if you're looking into trying to eat something different, something other than meat, steak and chicken and all of that all the time, something to think about, right? Something to look into. We're going to go ahead and get into the how much. So I had to stand up for this one because this is going to require just a little bit of math. One common thing that you might hear specifically for muscle building too is that you are to eat about 1 gram of protein for each pound that you have on you, right? So for however much you weigh, that's how many grams of protein you should eat every day. Well, what if I were to tell you that that's not necessarily the case? What if I were to tell you that, while you can do that, it's not really necessary? I'm going to go ahead and go into it a little further. So first, we're going to start with the general recommendation. Now, the general recommendation, for protein, now this is just for regular muscle maintenance, right? This isn't really for, we're going to get into like, the working out and stuff like that and how hardcore you might train and whatnot. We'll get into those different types of, those factors. The general recommendation is 0.8 grams for every kilogram of body weight that you have on you. First of all, in order for you to understand that, you first have to understand how to configure your weight in pounds to kilograms. Now, there's a simple formula for you to do that. That formula being, you take your weight in pounds and then you divide that by 2.2. The answer that you're going to get is your weight in kilograms. That's how you convert your weight from pounds to kilograms. So just as an example, I'm using myself, right? So I currently at the moment, right, weigh 200 pounds. So with that, you'll take 200, right, my weight, divided by 2.2, and you get 90.9. Now, obviously, point after the decimal point, you either round up or down because we're going to try to use whole numbers. It just, works out better that way. So for me, 91 kilograms, that's how much my weight is in kilogram form. Now that we know what my weight is in kilograms, the general recommendation, right, is 0.8. So I'm going to bring out my calculator for this one. So bear with me. We're going to take 91, right? And we're going to times that by 0.8. And when we do that, what we get is 72.8, rounding up to 73. So what that means is, in order for my body to, maintain and sustain, right, the muscle tissues and all of that, I would have to eat a minimum of 73 grams per day of protein. Now, here's where we're going to get into different factors, okay? Now, normally I would just print these out and, read from a paper, but in an effort to save some paper, I decided I'm going to just use my phone. So I'll put up, the chart right over here, so that you can look at what I'm looking at, so that you guys can have more of a visual as to what I'm about to go over. This table right here gives you, there's age in years, of course. Then you have grams of protein that your body is needed for its life cycle per kilogram of body weight. And the second column, or rather the third column, I should say, is your grams, how many grams of protein you should eat per body weight in pounds. For me, you can use pounds if you like, but for me, it's easier to use kilograms. Once I've converted my weight over to kilograms, I can do everything else that I need to. It's just easier for me. But you'll notice that if you decide to use your body weight in pounds, you'll notice that instead of 0.8 at the very bottom where it says 19 and up, right, for ages 19 and up, instead of 0.8, you're going to now need to use 0.36 for body weight in pounds. So since I started out this way, I'm going to just finish out this way. But this chart basically tells you, you know, from birth all the way up to, you know, when you become an adult, how much protein per, you know, in grams per kilogram or per, you know, pound you should be eating in order to sustain yourself for your body's entire life cycle. Now, this next chart that I have up here, this is where I was talking about different factors. So obviously you have those that live sedentary lifestyles. You got those that are, you know, training for endurance. They're training for muscle mass, endurance trained, right? Or just maintenance, okay? And that's what this video is about, muscle building and maintenance. But, you know, there's also intermittent and high intensity training, as well as, you know, weight restricted. Here's what you'll notice. We're going to start with the muscle building and maintenance, since that's what this particular video is about. So if you look, the third one down says strength trained, gain muscle mass. That's muscle building. And then the second one is muscle maintenance. So anywhere between 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now you'll notice this particular column only uses kilograms. Because let's say if I wanted to build more muscle, that means looking at the third one down, strength training, gain muscle mass, 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per my 91 kilograms of body weight. So we're going to start with 1.6, right, for the strength training, gain muscle mass, if muscle building is my goal. So 1.6 to 2, right? So starting on the low end, we have 91 times 1.6, and then we got 91 times 2 over here. Okay, I'm doing this so that way I can give you a sort of a range, for me anyway, since this is my weight. For however much you weigh, you know, this right here will tell you how to do the math on how much protein you need to eat. But for me, so 91 times 1.6, that's 145.6, which is going to round us up to 146. That's how many grams of protein I need to eat at the low end, right? This is the lower extremity. 91 times 2 is 182. So for somebody like me, if I wanted to build muscle, that means I need to eat anywhere from 146 grams to about 182 grams of protein. This right here does support the notion that for you to eat as many grams of protein as you weigh in order to put on more muscle, especially, you don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I weigh 200 pounds. If I wanted to put on more muscle, I don't have to eat 200 grams of protein per day. I don't have to do that. This right here will suffice for me. Okay, this is enough for my body to be able to do what it needs to, you know, for my muscle cells and muscle tissues and all of that, right? When I go hit the weights, anytime you go hit the weights or what have you, you know, your muscle tissues, you know, they tear, right? That's how you get sore. That soreness is, you know, your muscle tissues tearing. And while your muscle tissues are torn, it's looking for a sufficient amount of protein to be able to rebuild those tissues and make the muscle stronger and, you know, even bigger. The next thing we're going to do, since this video is about maintenance as well, so we're going to go ahead and say this is MB for muscle building. Now down here we're going to go MM for muscle maintenance. So that means we're going to be looking at the second one down, 1.2 to 2 grams. So we already know that 91 times 2 is 182 grams, right? Low end is now 1.2, because remember muscle building was 1.6. So 91 times 1.2, that's going to give us 109.2 or 109 grams, just, you know, rounded down. Okay, for me to maintain what I've got, that's how much protein I need per day for my body weight. If you are interested in looking at anything else, maybe those of you out there listening, maybe you're, you know, trying to train for endurance, maybe you're doing high intensity workouts, you know, typically the more that you do, the more protein obviously that your body is going to require. While you don't have to eat as much protein as you weigh, you do have to eat somewhat of an elevated amount of protein especially if you're muscle building or even if you're maintaining. Now, the reason for that, of course, is because when your body is trying to maintain muscle, or especially when it's building, it's more so building. Maintaining, as you can see, the lower extremity is lower for muscle maintenance than it is muscle building. Now, the reason for that is because in order for your body to build muscle, that takes energy. I remember talking about that in my carbs video. Anything that your body does, whether it's your internal cellular processes or any kind of functions, right? Neurological functions, it takes energy, and that energy comes in the form of calories, right? It's important to remember. Now, because your energy from calories is getting expended and depleted trying to build muscle, that's why you have to eat more. You have to eat a little bit more protein, okay? Because if you're not eating enough, you may not get the gains that you're looking for, because you're not feeding your body a sufficient amount that it needs for your body to be able to go ahead and build those muscles and repair those tissues and make your muscles a little bit stronger, and as well as bigger too. So your body expends more calories. When it comes to muscle building and maintenance, obviously it's not just about proteins, it's about carbs too, okay? Because carbs are still our body's main preferred source of energy. So this hopefully will put a lot of you at ease, about eating so much protein, trying to get all that protein in, and you're trying to eat as much as you weigh. You don't have to do that if you're, trying to muscle build. Another thing you may hear is that you have to eat more times throughout the day. So there's people that eat like 5 or 6 meals. You can do that, and that's actually, believe it or not, probably one of the more optimal ways for your body to build muscle. The reason being is because throughout the day, the more meals that you eat to get this, each time your body is expending the calories, in that form, to be able to rebuild your tissues and make them stronger, you're continuously throughout the day replacing that same energy. Okay, so when your body loses out on it, it's going to make the muscle building process a little difficult. Muscle maintenance isn't too difficult because you're maintaining. Is it preferred? Yeah, but you don't have to, as you can see, right? You see the clear difference in the lower extremities between the two. This simple formula right here, you just take your weight, divide your weight by 2.2, because I like to do kilograms, but take your weight divided by 2.2, you'll get your weight in kilograms, and then you can go ahead and use this right here, or that chart that I showed, that second chart for sedentary individuals, or if you're strength training for muscle building, whatever, you can just use those numbers and simply multiply your body weight in kilograms times those numbers. That will tell you how much you need. Hopefully that clears things up for you. All right, so thank you again for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed, and then if you did enjoy, definitely give it a like, subscribe if you feel inclined, and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you know when I release a video. If you got any questions, comments, or concerns, hit my comment section. I do check them periodically, and I will see y'all on the next video. Y'all take care. Have a good one.